Thank you, everybody. We took our brief break for sustenance, and we're going to call up Mr. Barnhart and go through Community and Economic Development. Page 92 is this budget? Page 92 in our budget books. Mr. Barnhart, we'll let you go first, and then I'm sure there'll be some questions. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, this budget is up 7% over prior year. My guess is some of this is the payroll issue, correct, Mr.?
No, actually, it's
Mr. Mayor?
the bulk
It's not,
of it
huh?
is one line item, and we're requesting some additional funds
Okay,
to help resource our business recruitment campaign. I think,
which line item is that?
and the fees and professional services. So I feel that that's provides us with flexibility moving forward, and that we can make adjustments as the campaign unfolds and determine how best to utilize those resources to achieve the outcomes we're looking for, rather than looking for additional staff resources. So this would be to both engage select expert or consultants, if you will, in targeted areas, but more specifically to acquire prospect lists and the like, and do additional marketing materials or have support to provide additional marketing materials to support that campaign. So I'd be happy to respond to other questions. The other increases in our seasonal payroll line,
That's what I
fairly
saw.
modest request there, but again, that's we found that interns from both of our universities are a very cost-effective way to leverage or augment the services we provide, particularly with regard to marketing, communications, and social media accounts and the like, which has become increasingly important. So that just frees up a little bit more of my time by utilizing interns from both universities, and we provide a small stipend for their time.
Thank you, Mr. Barnhart. Let's go to the boards for questions. We'll start with Mr. DeWitt. We'll go to Mrs. Leclerc right after.
So I'm looking at the budget summary, the 7.2 increase to participate in the Fairfield County 5, which...
among other things. I think I will say that certainly it's important for us to look at things regionally in terms of doing business recruitment, to work with our partners, both at the state level and utility companies, but also our counterparts in Fairfield County. We've engaged the last year. We started this initiative working with my colleagues in Greenwich, Stanford, Norwalk, and Westport to have an outward-facing business recruitment effort targeted on New York City to look at companies that might be in the market looking for places in which to relocate. We want to make sure that Fairfield County is represented there, that they're considering not just Westchester and northern New Jersey as well as New York locations, but Fairfield County as well. And we'll need to provide some resources toward that effort, both for the actual visitation as well as the site tours that would hopefully follow. We have another event planned in May, and we'll be doing, we're planning to do two events in the city each year, spring and fall, with some site tours that would follow in between for companies that hopefully will be interested in learning more about what we have to offer here. But in addition to that,
just on that, resources people or resources money?
Resources money.
Okay.
There'll be some costs associated. We get where we can. We try to get some donations, and obviously we're seeking sponsorships and corporate support. But we'll, at least initially, we'll need to provide some resources to do those types of campaigns. In addition to that, we are in the process of updating our economic development portion of the website. That will be central to our marketing efforts here. We anticipate a late spring launch for that website. Concurrent with that launch, we're planning a complementary outbound marketing campaign where we'll again be looking to target small to medium-sized companies in specific industries that have a foothold here in Fairfield County, either a legacy or we have certain strengths within the marketplace. And we'll be looking to attract them and again entice them to look at Fairfield in particular as a business location. That in and of itself won't necessarily result in positive or meaningful changes to the grand list until the point in time which we can demonstrate sufficient demand for office product or other commercial space such that the development committee will respond in kind and provide additional supply. But we are, as with this program, reaching out to property owners, business leaders, developers, brokers, making sure that we're on point with our messaging, that we're soliciting their support and assistance. We're asking them to help us identify business prospects. We're also asking business leaders in particular to be business ambassadors, so that if we do have a positive response, particularly in like industry, we can put them in touch with the CEO or somebody in a high position within those companies that can answer their questions as to what it's like to do business in Fairfield. So all those efforts are intended to, again, try to increase business investment here that will hopefully pay dividends down the road in terms of increasing commercial activity in the grand list.
Okay.
I was long-winded to answer.
No, the only thing that was surprising to me was that
I'm anticipating
It-
Mr. Walsh's questions.
it
I
was
thought.
the thing that was
They're the same every year.
no, the thing that was surprising to me was that you specifically said the 7.28 was just for the Fairfield County 5, and what I've seen about it on it doesn't seem like it's should be sucking down 7% of.
I agree. That
Yeah.
I would have liked to have redo that one. So I'm trying to clarify this for the record that it's not just
All right.
solely related to that.
Okay.
Mrs. Leclerc?
But I like that you're going out now for the economic development piece. I think that's really important for the town. What I'm wondering is, have you approached the two universities to see if they could help us, like with social media or do a commercial? They both have marketing departments and things. So is that in the works?
Glad you asked. Actually, they're, again, very central to our whole competitive positioning statement. They were actually the first visit I made to both universities, the marketing community relations department, leadership there to enlist their support and assistance in this campaign because that, frankly, is our competitive advantage vis-a-vis other cities or towns in Fairfield County. And there's a lot of places here in Fairfield County, the Gold Coast, that can talk about an exceptional quality of life, top performing schools. They're on the coast with lots of nice coastline. Certainly there are others that are locationally in a better position locationally vis-a-vis New York City on the train line, have also immediate access to rail. But the one thing that we do have that sets us apart is two universities here. And so we're looking to do what we can to leverage that, and so that's key to our whole effort, and I think you'll see that front and center in terms of our campaign. You know, both universities I mentioned have been very helpful in terms of providing capable interns that can help us in the media and the social media in particular, marketing, and we continue to rely upon their expertise and assistance where we can.
Thank you.
So I had two questions. One, I don't envy the job because when I look at Fairfield County, I think, right, isn't the vacancy rate, the commercial vacancy rate, over 20%, somewhere around 25%?
About 25% in Stanford, yeah.
Yeah, so how do you get commercial redevelopment, not just people moving in, but commercial redevelopment
I
with
think that's-
vacancy rates that high?
That is a real issue for us, and that's why we haven't seen a lot of new office product being developed in the county, period, in the last couple decades. Actually, if you go back, most of the new office production, and this includes the entire county, has been for single occupant users for specific reasons, but there hasn't been a lot of new office development, certainly not built on spec. And that's partly because the economics, the market realities that you're talking about. So I think part of our realization is that we need to do something to change the market equation to increase demand so that there'll be eventually corresponding change in the supply equation as well.
And what is that? What, do you know what that is?
What is?
You just said we got to do something to change the equation. What are we doing?
Well, the idea is to try to bring companies into the county and to fill up that
But
vacant
that's everybody's
space.
idea, though. That's not a new idea.
I don't think there's anything that's new or novel about this. We've been doing this all along. It's a question of providing
what-
additional resources toward it, as well as working collaboratively with our regional. That is new. That is the one
Right.
thing that is new in terms of our working with.
And I want to step into that in a second. And I'm going to ask you a question. It's not, please, this is not meant at you, Mr. Barnhart, but the first selectman has said a few times that Westport has done a better job growing their grand list than Fairfield has over the last decade or so. Fair statement? What have they done differently that we haven't done? And again, that's not an accusation or anything. What can we
I
learn?
can answer that question. You look at the underlying dynamics there, and what you see is the growth in the residential component of the grand list, and that's more not attributable to increase in production, housing production, but rather that their housing prices appreciated faster than housing prices in Fairfield. You can see that clearly in the data that I've looked at.
Why?
Why are houses more valuable in Westport than
That's
they
what
are
I'm
in
asking.
Fairfield?
Yeah.
I think, well, one of the reasons is they're located a little closer, so there is a corresponding relationship in terms of valuation the closer you get into the city, but that's not entirely the reason, because obviously you have other cities and towns that are closer to New York than even Westport, and their housing prices aren't necessarily there either. The other factor is quality of the school system. You know, those are the two factors that there's a causal relationship there. We looked into this a little bit closer, and a gentleman that has volunteered his time and did a lot of research around this particular point. It does beg further study, but I don't believe that. I didn't find those results that surprising, that housing prices in Westport, housing in general, the median house value in Westport is higher than it is in Fairfield, and significantly higher.
Yeah, you can, Mr. Mattoli.
Doesn't Westport have, for lack of a better term, much bigger size homes than Fairfield? I mean, isn't that part of it?
I'm sure it's part. I can't tell you exactly, but I'm sure that's part of it. Absolutely. Yeah, we have areas of town, again, that have more modestly priced homes, which has been helpful in some respects, but also tends to drag down the median price of the housing. I think that's pretty clear.
But if you compare the same 3,000 square foot Colonial in Westport on the exact same size lot, it's $200,000 to $300,000 more. Yeah. It just is.
Actually, I'd suggest more than that.
Could be. I mean, I've seen a couple of examples recently, and I'd say that's on new houses, new construction, that it was about a 2 to 3, and it all depends on the neighborhood. Some of these neighborhoods are 400 feet up a street off of where the Dairy Queen is in Westport. So right off what we'd consider Post Road, I'm comparing that to a house in what I would consider to be a better neighborhood in Fairfield.
Yeah.
But the same exact size lot, same exact size house, same exact size amenities.
You can see a brand new construction Westport home for $3 million in a fairly plain Jane neighborhood, next to ranches and without dramatic. You get a $3 million house in Fairfield, you're going to get a pretty dramatic location.
What's their commercial base versus, percentage-wise, versus
I think
residential?
it's a
versus-
bit higher than ours. Mark, do you have the percentage on that? I want to say it's about 15%, and I think we're close.
No,
to
it's a
10.
little less than that. It's about the same. It's a little higher, I believe, as a percent of their overall grand list. Let me see if I have it here.
That's where you see one of the structural advantages is we have 30 square miles
Right,
for 60,000 people.
right,
Westport has 20 square miles
Right.
30,000 people.
This is
So
a
you
bit,
have more land per person to build
Right.
on.
They also have a longer, what I would consider to be either Post Road / Black Rock Turnpike. Their Post Road from Fairfield's border
Yeah,
to
exactly.
Norwalk
It's
being
longer.
all commercial is a lot longer.
yeah.
And those properties, I would say, are a lot more valuable.
And a lot more accessible.
Well, certainly if you look at the rents
Yes.
along that property,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
commercial rents are much higher than
Right.
what they are in Fairfield.
Yes.
I've
Our
heard that
our
as well.
commercial industrial component is roughly a little less than 10%, and theirs is a little more than, it's almost 12%. So it's in the same ballpark. What I found interesting, we looked at a trend line like 20 years from 1995 through 2015, and the communities we looked at all experienced a reduction in the commercial share of the grand list, the commercial component of the grand list, with the exception of Greenwich. Greenwich was the only one that saw a positive change in that over that period of time, and Westport was rather pronounced. It went, their commercial share, again, this could be timing to some extent, but their commercial share went from 20% to about 12% over that time period. Ours went from about 12% to about 10%. So, you know, one of the things we're looking to do is try to boost up that share. I think it's one of the things we've talked about before is that the commercial one, there's about 4.5% of our land mass that's zoned for commercial industrial uses. But there's some tracts that are underdeveloped or undeveloped at the present time, and we're focused on those to see what we can do to talking to property owners and see if there's impediments that we're causing that we can help alleviate so that they would move forward with some type of development. At the same time, talking to businesses that are currently here that own property and see whether or not they have plans for expansion and whether we can assist them in meeting those objectives as well.
It also seems as though we have office space as opposed, and I'm thinking at the buildings, in fact, one of my offices was in the building next to Trademark,
Yep.
right? And those two buildings, isn't there a proposal now to get rid of those two buildings and build more of the mixed use like Trademark right next to it?
Actually incorporate them into a new development plan for that site. So the two buildings will remain. They're actually
remain.
proposing to enclose the bottom floor of 1375 and turn that in, convert that to additional commercial retail space. And some of the parking would be obviously displaced, and they're proposing to construct a parking structure at their expense to accommodate both their commercial office and retail tenants as well as residential. So true mixed-use development, but would add, you know, substantially to our grand list upon completion.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's important, I guess, it's important to always have projects in the pipeline. So we do have projects that have recently been completed that have helped offset the loss of the GE campus site. But we also have projects that are in various stages of construction currently that, upon full valuation, will certainly help offset that trend line.
What's going on with Metro Center? I know we talked to you very briefly about that a little bit ago. Is there any update based on?
Well, I talked to the development team, and they were again one of the individuals, folks that we talked to with regard to our business recruitment campaign, whatever we can do to work together to, again, identify people that they may be talking to in terms of prospects, as well as add to that list to hopefully gin up some interest in the commercial component. But understanding that there's a huge, for the reasons you outlined earlier,
Right.
you know, they're looking to, they'd have to bring a product on and basically be in the $40 a square foot range. And I've heard that from multiple sources, so I don't necessarily take one person's word for it. And when the going rate in Stanford is $30 a square foot, you know, you really got to like that Fairfield location to pay a premium. So that said, they're planning to present a revised site plan, master plan for the site. It's still going to be a phased development. I'm sure that they will be looking for some residential as part of the overall development mix. We've encouraged them to achieve some level of balance. I think one of the shortcomings from the original plan was it was so heavily weighted towards office, as much as we all wanted to see 1 million square feet of office built. it was perhaps unrealistic even from the get-go during a more robust period of the state's history in terms of development activity or business interests. So I think that was too heavily weighted towards the office sector to the expense of others, and perhaps now, we need to make sure that we don't, for a short-term expediency, cut off the possibility in the future that we have the ability to respond to market demands for other commercial
When is that new
space.
proposal due?
It's not due at any particular time, but my understanding is they're going to be looking to file with inland wetlands in the next 30 days.
And do we know what it is yet? I'm sorry, John, I didn't mean. Go ahead. Do we know what the percentages are on that? Have they given you any?
Not
heads up?
final. They were still tweaking, and for purposes of inland wetlands, you really just need to identify areas of disturbance or, building blocks. To some extent, it makes sense to me to even keep it for purposes of a master plan to allow some flexibility in the plan as you go forward. I've certainly, I know both my counterparts in planning and zoning, as well as myself. We've met with the team, the architects, engineers, everyone associated with the project, including the developer himself, and we've been saying the same thing, which is, look for balance. We need to have some commercial component as part of the overall, at least initial phase. And also we need, we think it's appropriate to have some flexibility as you go forward, so you're not, in the same situation 5-10 years down the road because the market realities have changed, right? So,
John, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No. I was going to ask a question about another property, but I don't know if you still want to.
Does anybody else have anything in the Metro Center right now?
Oh, not in the Metro Center.
Do you have something? Oh,
Chris was asking.
Chris,
I don't
go
have
right
anything
ahead.
on the Metro Center.
It's what?
I don't have anything on the Metro Center.
You?
Yeah.
On the Metro Center?
Yep.
Go.
Okay. Number one, congratulations getting Employee of the Year. Just wanted to congratulate you on that. Good achievement. Well deserved. If I called you up and said I had a client potentially for that site, what do you have to give me on that site to give to a client?
incentive-wise,
What kind of marketing piece do you have to give me?
I can develop a marketing piece. We
Do you have anything
customize
now?
all of that.
Do you have anything now?
We
Like,
have.
do you and the developer have like some like 10-page or 20-page like binded thing on that?
I don't have anything binded, but what I do is generally take something and customize it. The last request I had was I customized something within, a half hour, pulled something together based on the slides we have. And
It
and
seems to
provided
me
it.
that some of that money that we're going to hopefully give you, that extra 10, should be you and the developer, and even if you guys needed to sit down with the state and have some type of marketing piece. So like when you go into New York City twice a year,
Yep.
that you as something really professional, really like great photos, what can be done, the beauty of Fairfield, the train station, all that stuff, the metrics, everything laid out. It surprises me that the developer in their various ownership schemes that they've had don't have something like that for
Well,
you.
Actually, I have 4 iterations of a marketing book for that particular
Okay.
site.
Okay.
So
do you take that with you when you go?
So I
to
do
places?
take that with
Okay.
me, and we took a marketing package on that site in particular last time we went into the city for a recruitment visit. So, but I also find it helpful to learn a little bit more about the prospect, exactly what they're looking for and what types of issues or concerns they may have. There's a piece that obviously is germane, applies to everything. We can quickly turn that around, but it's also helpful, and most of the companies I'm dealing with typically are looking at multiple sites. They may be several in Fairfield, elsewhere as well, and we want to be able to customize that based on their particular needs. So I do find, definitely we want to make sure that we have top quality marketing materials at all times, but I also want to be able to respond to individual needs or questions they might have and customize it to some degree.
Because it seems to me as though trying to fill up 1 million square feet or 800,000 square feet of office space in this marketplace would be very wishful thinking. What you really need there is 1, 2, or 3 major people to come in, somebody who wants to have their own developed site, whether it be one company or multiple companies who want to build to their specs
Yes.
to come in.
Yeah, that
And-
site is unique unto
And that's
itself
a national
here.
search.
Yep.
That's a national search. It's going to cost some money with somebody national to just try to find a company. And there are people out there that do that. It just seems to me as though we should be more in coordination with, I guess, and I'm not sure whether they're just not interested, the owners, to do that. But, just as though this was a tri-party agreement to begin with, this whole mess, to be quite honest with you, maybe all the parties should try to get together and try to market that property or pay money to hire somebody
Agree.
to go on a national site. Because my
However-
concern about what some of the stuff you've mentioned is, this whole mixed use thing, is we cannot afford, the last thing we could possibly afford in this town is to have to open another school. I mean, it would kill us. I mean, so whatever program that they want to put together is going to have to try to limit not having many more children to become components of it. I mean, already you start having a mixed use. It's going to be interesting to see what the police and fire say about what additional assets they're going to need to provide fire and police protection over in that area for a residential use versus a commercial use.
Right.
And those things like concern me, and Mike, I don't know where you stand on this as the CEO, but I mean, is that going to be a main component of anything that they suggest? Are you going to calculate those numbers on whatever program it is of, what is this really going to cost the town?
Yeah. I mean, much of what you're saying has been part of all the discussions going up, so so you're, on one hand, you're on point, on the other hand, we've had those discussions. I think when you look at mixed use and you look at what's taken place, frankly, the apartments they're putting in are really targeted more at either seniors or millennials. They're not you're talking studios, 1.5 bedroom type, with some 2 bedrooms. You're not talking family occupancy, and certainly you're not talking playgrounds and backyards, and it's not a single family concept. So when you look at the trans-story development and the concepts and some of the things we've been working on, that really is about creating additional housing for millennials, because that's a segment that we don't have. And you're talking about rental apartments in Fairfield. Our rental options, as you well know, are renting single-family homes or condos. We don't have rental apartments per se. So the mixed use that's coming in is really targeted at that segment. It's not targeted at kids and what's taking place. And I think, our historical experience is, say, Mosswood, which we're all familiar with. And I think there are 9 kids in that, and that's got, I don't know how many total units. I want to say 100. But certainly it's got some 3-bedroom units in there, too, which are not what's going in these.
Thank you.
I just want a couple other points. We do work currently with site selectors, and that'll be part of our campaign going forward. You're right that can require a fairly significant investment. I would say that we're not really focused on a national search because in most cases, we don't necessarily believe that we're going to be all that successful in attracting companies from certain areas of the country to Connecticut or to the Northeast. So I think our focus is more in the Northeast to begin with. We think that at least we're on equal footing from a cost standpoint. We need to, as part of that, engage other folks, including the state, in those efforts. And those tend to have fairly long lead times in terms of seeing that, because no one moves a large facility of any kind in a year. It usually takes place with a long lead times in terms of planning. So your point's well taken. I would also say, to the point the first selectman made, not all residential is created equal in terms of a dollar yield or tax yield per acre. The type of dense development we saw with Trademark Fairfield is among the highest that you'll see here in town amongst development types. So they can be a positive tax rateable and not produce impacts to municipal services, including educational services, depending on unit type and size. And so I think that's very important as we go forward, looking at any kind of mixed-use opportunity around transit nodes to take that into account.
Thank you very much.
I think you're just to complete, you're gonna, I think at some point, if this doesn't work out, this residential mixed-use thing, I think you're gonna at some point have to sit down with the state and come up and market this with tax benefits.
Yep.
Because we're not getting the tax revenue anyway right now.
Let's go.
Well, there are a couple options there, including
know.
at the state as well as local, so we'll
Go to
look at
Mr.
that.
Timniak. I want to move this.
Thank you for coming. I mean, I'm wrestling with the budget for, not the small increase you're asking for, but I'm wrestling with it on the flip side. I've been to a couple other states this year. I've been to a couple national conferences. Every conference I go to, I find out, I talk, I discuss how are these other states growing. In specific, when I'm at the U.S. Conference of Mayors event, or I'm at another event, I can think of one in Texas earlier this year. It's happening, and I know other states have advantages. It's happening because towns and cities are being ultra aggressive with how they're going out there and marketing their towns. And what they're doing, the different services they're out there hiring and paying, either whether it's a consulting firm or what, recruitment going out there, trying to lure people back. And so what they're doing is they're setting a distinction between their town and their neighboring town, or what's going on. And then I look at this budget and I realize this budget here, this particular economic development budget, which I view your office as a revenue driver for the town. And I see this budget as an unfortunate reality of the state of Connecticut and an unfortunate reality of where we're at. Where we're talking about a budget which your hands are full, 100% filing grants, doing what you're doing, and you look at here, the department continues to provide support and service for very retail-based initiatives, Fairfield Restaurant Week, Sidewalk Sale, Shop and Stroll, in addition to working with affordable housing, block grant program, all that, and you're an employee and a half with one person set there. Where's the aggression and where's the sense of urgency coming from the economic development and the town of Fairfield distinguishing ourselves from the rest of the Fairfield County towns?
I think I covered that earlier, which is, and I'm hoping to attend your next meeting, both to talk about one of the grants we received to broaden the scope of work, because our proposals did come in, as I thought they would, under budget, so we do have the room to include opportunities, look at transit development opportunities in the downtown area as part of the planning study scope of work. But in addition to that, I will provide a further briefing to the board in terms of this marketing initiative we're embarking on. And what we see as our competitive advantage is the fact that we have two universities. And as I said before, if you look at our competitors in Fairfield County, there are a lot of places that can talk about access to rail and proximity to New York City, maybe even in a better position than we are. They can talk about top performing schools, exceptional quality of life, all kinds of wonderful things, but no one can talk about, to the extent that we can, the fact that we have two universities in our community, a community this size.
Okay, so let's put it another way. No, you've said that before. You're kind of repeating what you said earlier. I agree. But I don't think that's what Mr. Timniak was getting at.
asking about our competitive advantage.
No, what he was asking about was where's the aggression? He knows you have the competitive advantage. We all know it. And you laid it out beautifully 15 minutes ago about the universities and all that. I guess the way I would put the question, dovetailing on what Mr. Timniak said, is, and this is what we do in business all the time. You're the marketing department for the town. You're the sales department, right?
Among other things, yes.
Right. I agreed. And that was kind of his point. So the point is, if we were to say, we'll give you $100,000, what can you do with that $100,000?
I'll hire somebody specific for that purpose then,
For what purpose?
for the purpose that Mr. Timniak just outlined, and we'll evaluate then on that basis.
And what would the payback be? How long would it take?
It would take multiple years.
Okay, so if we.
Because the objective here is to actually increase the grand list, not necessarily to recruit business into town. That's a means to an end, right?
Understand. No, I get what you're saying.
The
With
other
that being
thing, the
said,
other part of the
do you think
equation.
we would be successful doing that? Where's the table thump to say, give me an extra $100,000?
Well, the other part of that equation is what we're missing here too, is that this is a collaborative team effort. And so we need to make sure that all hands are on deck, and that the strategic imperative is there from top down, all the way across this organization, laterally and up and down the organization. I think we're starting to see.
What does that mean? That was a whole bunch of words, and I'm not sure what it meant.
What I'm saying is that it's, in the last few years, or last few months rather, I've heard more discussion about the need for this community to grow.
Agreed.
And increase their commercial component of their grand list than I have in the 12 or 13 years prior.
I think that's a fair comment.
And so that is what's necessary. Because at the end of the day, I can be successful in bringing companies in, but if we can't get them to where they need to be in terms of getting the approvals they need and getting in the ground, it won't matter.
Okay, so what I just heard, and I might be just intuiting this, right, is that throughout town government right now, right, we're not set up to spur that development.
I don't think until recently, I'm not sure that everyone was on board with that message, with that plan.
Now, does that
Which
mean
is-
everyone in terms of the community, or does that mean everyone in terms of town government? Because there's two different things there, because I agree
I'm
with
not
you.
sure that we're there as a community either.
I understand that point.
And so I think, starting with elected boards and commissions and appointed boards and commissions,
Right,
the leadership of the town, that's one thing, but then
Right.
there's the broader community. We get calls all the time that, and you'll see it, any particular application you're hearing, the number of people opposed to a project greatly outnumber the people in support of a project.
right.
And in fact, I had an Economic Development Committee meeting this morning where there was an application to make a fairly modest expansion of an existing office use. And it was the largest turnout I've ever had from the public to an Economic Development Committee meeting, and people were really engaged about whether or not we should endorse or support an application that is yet to be filed with Planning and Zoning for a modest 3,000 square foot addition to accommodate an existing tenant that wanted to grow.
Right.
So
So we don't make it easy to do business with.
That's just an anecdotal, case.
No, and I greatly
But,
appreciate that.
I mean, I think that's the good thing about going through a strategic planning initiative.
Yep.
Is there is hope that we might be able to align the community around a common goal, or at least most people will buy into that consensus that we're in growth mode. We're looking to encourage people to develop here. Obviously, it's not at all cost. It's not, we need to take into account, we want quality development. We can set high standards, but we do need to make sure that we have a process in place that people understand we're open for business. We want you to make an investment here, and that they know that there's some predictability to that process. They know at the end of the day, if they follow the rules, they meet our objectives in terms of what we're looking to achieve, that they'll get the result that they're looking for.
No, and thank you for this, because this is a very good conversation, an important conversation, because what I'm hearing, right, is our sales and marketing league saying, hey, if you give me more money, I think I can spur interest. I'm not so sure that collectively we can close the deal. We can't deliver the product, or you're concerned we can't deliver the product. Is that a fair statement?
I do have some concerns in that regard, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the honesty of that, because that's a discussion as a community we need to have.
And I think this is a really, for a couple reasons. I mentioned the strategic planning initiative, but also the Planning and Zoning Commission has embarked on a plan of conservation development, an update to their POCD, which will take a year and a half to 2 years to complete. But that gives an opportunity for the commission and the public and other stakeholders in this process to take a close look at what our land use policies and goals are, and make sure that they are aligned to where, what we want to see as a town.
Why does that take so long to complete? I guess 2 years seems like a hell of a long time to me, considering the
They're doing
revenue.
it. They're doing it in-house. They're doing it in-house with basically existing staff resources. It can be sped up, but to do it thoughtfully and do it well, it's going to take a certain amount of time. I don't think you want to rush this necessarily. It's going to be there for the next 10 years to guide. It should be there for the next 10 years.
You gave two different answers to that, the way I heard you. One was, hey, we're doing it in-house because we want
are.
to keep the expenses down.
Right.
And because we're doing it that way and because everybody's got a full-time job, it's going to take 2 years. That was the first part of your answer. Then the second part of your answer is, hey, we don't want to rush it, we want to do it right.
I think both of those are true.
If we hired someone from the outside, a reputable firm, could we get it done right and could we get it done more quickly?
I think it would get done a little faster than 2 years because you'd have the resources dedicated to that, but and that would be augmenting what we already have in-house. I mean, that just makes sense to me. And that's part of the reason why that given the opportunity to get this transit-oriented development planning grant, one of the things that we're required to look at as part of our plan of conservation development update is transit-oriented development opportunities. So by receiving this planning grant from the state, we're looking to help facilitate that conversation, to advance that conversation with the Planning and Zoning Commission and department and staff. We want them to take the lead in using those funds to help further their goals as it relates to this plan of conservation development, because that will serve everyone's interest in the long run.
Right.
So I'm happy to report we put it out for bid, for proposals. We got a very robust response, all of whom were able to say, yes, we can take a look at not only the Commerce Drive, Kings Highway area, but we can also look at the downtown and stay within your $200,000 budget. So I will be coming back before the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, and RTM to ask you if you would. I've already checked with the state, and the state indicated they're okay with a broadened scope of work.
I just find it that it just comes across so laborious and bureaucratic and slow-moving, and it doesn't come across as we're easy to do business with. And I think you're absolutely right. As a community, we have, depending on where things go, we have different groups that get involved in saying, don't do this here, don't do this there, and that's legitimate, because people are worried about the character of the town. So I don't minimize that at all. But I think it makes it very hard to grow that grand list and grow that commercial tax base. And that puts us in a hell of a spot. And to Mr. Timniak's question about being aggressive, about going out there and getting these opportunities for someplace like the Metro Center. It's already there.
Yep. I'll leave it at that, because
Are there other towns that have another person? So say we were to find a position in town we could terminate, and to give you another person, another $100,000, $150,000, like a real professional. Are there other towns that do that in Fairfield County?
I've been working very closely with Stanford. Stanford has 2 full-time positions for that size community. Bridgeport obviously has a much bigger staff, but I think, it's not necessarily the number of staff people you have, it's how effectively you use the resources you have for that purpose. So I think that's a good example of that. I think we could do more with more resources, I think. But at the same time, to my point earlier, I think we need, and the answer could be that no, we don't really want to grow in certain parts of town, or we don't want to do this, and that's okay too. We just need to reach that conclusion collectively and be prepared to deal with the consequences of that, because
Right.
there's implications. So we're approaching this with the idea of we need to grow the grand list commercial, and that will help reduce the burden on the residential homeowner. offset reductions in municipal aid from the state, pay for other services, including education. All these are good, but there is that choice. And I think there's a lot more people that are talking about this is imperative. We need to be doing this, and that's welcome news to the Economic Development Commission. We have been talking about it for a while, and there hasn't been a lot of other folks that have picked up that tune until recently.
Yeah, because I think we kind of need somebody like that. I think you need more assistance to show that we're open for business, because I understand you're working with one hand tied behind your back with the way this state operates and with the way the governor's been and the legislature has been and the taxation. It's basically a message to business that we are closed for business as a state. And we now need to promote ourselves. Forget them. They're not helping us. They are hurting us.
Well,
So, to me, it seems like we need more resources.
that's
Not a lot of money.
That's
in
why
the essence
we-
of a $305 million budget, because we're now a $300 million corporation. Because that's what a $300 million corporation would do if they wanted to be opening for business, is they would
And I-
put more into marketing.
And that's partly why, again, we're working with other communities that are like-minded, that are also looking to grow and want to break through the noise and suggest that Fairfield County is, in fact, receptive to development and open for business. So that's why, the Fairfield County 5 program got off the ground, because those 5 communities were interested in doing that collectively. And so I think there's benefit to working together, because many companies are looking, especially the companies you're talking about, are not looking at Fairfield as a town. They're looking at a metro region. We're part of the New York metro region. I mean, it'd be actually great if Amazon went anywhere in the New York metro region. I mean, it would benefit us immensely. It didn't have to be necessarily in the state of Connecticut in order for them to have residual impact in terms of the Connecticut economy. So, but
Thank
I'm
you.
just using that as examples.
Yeah, no, I think we're getting into territory where we're saying the same things over and over again. We all, I do want to go to Mrs. Leclerc because she had a question.
I do. When we hold public meetings for like a project coming up or with town plan and zoning, do you attend or do you send a representative to like work with the neighbors and say, well, and talk about our issues with the grand list and why this project would really be beneficial to the town? So, everyone has an understanding of how that would help our community?
The difference is, and we talked, the issue is that those benefits accrue to a broader group of people, and people are perceiving the cost to themselves individually. So they're looking at it, well, that's great, everyone benefits if development occurs, but put it over there, not necessarily here.
Yeah, not in my
So
backyard.
that's the issue. So, yeah, we were engaged. I will continue to talk to those folks that attended our meeting today and see if there is a reasonable ground to narrow the differences. We encourage all of our developers or applicants to do some outreach, particularly with projects that might have some controversial elements to it. And we do try to attend those meetings or have a representative, or at least provide letters in support of projects, or at least point out what we think are the beneficial effects. And I think those are generally well received, or have been more well received in the recent years.
And then I had a second question that's kind of off topic from that, and that is, do you have a timeline for the Exide property, and what's the status of that?
Yeah, we're in the groundwater monitoring phase. They're required to do a series of several months of groundwater up to a year of groundwater monitoring. Complete that with satisfactory results. They'll be able to then close the remedial plan for the site, demonstrate compliance with the requirements of the consent order, and then be free to dispose of the property. So we're looking. They're most of the way through that period. We're looking at, hopefully by the end of this year, that they would sell the property. And then we've already talked to the ownership group or development group that has an option on the property about what their plans are for the site.
All right.
Is that still the Lenosis and the United Property Group?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Have you talked to them about their plans on what they want to do?
Yes.
What are those plans?
Just vaguely mixed use. You know, it's probably a retail component given its post road proximity, but then some kind of mixed use, probably residential above. We don't have any more details for that, but that again would be a focus of this Trans-Area Development Planning Grant, to look specifically at that site and hopefully, you know, be very clear in terms of what we would like to see as a community for that location.
Thank you, Ms. Esmond.
Thanks. Well, first of all, congrats on your award. And also, you've had a couple of recent signings, so congratulations on those. I have two questions. One is, you know, we had a positive conversion recently where we took tax-free property, the synagogue on Stratfield, and it's now part of the Grand List, so it's been converted to commercial. Are there any other opportunities like that in town that you know of? I mean, that you're hearing about? Or is that sort of a one-time rare occurrence?
Well, I think there are other opportunities, including potentially, you know, sites that that are owned by the town, for example, that might provide opportunities for development in the future. But that's something I think we should look at as part of an overall planning process. And
Thanks. The other question I have is when it comes to affordable housing, and I think this may happen in New York, but what if we were to own an apartment building? So we're the landlord and we collect the revenue. You know, we're not asking someone else to develop it, and then our concern, of course, is, you know, how can they get around zoning laws? Is that a possibility at all in a community like this?
well, this town actually has acted as a developer in the past. The townhomes that are deed restricted ownership units on Nordstrom and Greenfield Street, the town acted as kind of the master developer for that property. I would say we're not well equipped to do that. That's not what we typically do, so it would be better to work with either a for-profit or nonprofit entity that shares our goals and is more expertise in that particular area that we could partner with, and I think that's the better option for us. And then put in place protections to make sure that we achieve the community goals we're looking for.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to move this along if we can. Are there any wrap-up questions here? Let's keep it specific to the
yeah.
budget right now, Mr. Tetra.
Yeah.
Mr. Timniak.
Yeah. I guess in wrapping up, I tend to have echo Jim Walsh's comments about you know, maybe this is the moment where we decide to grow and step out from the routine, and you know, distinguish ourselves as a company which isn't going to lay down and be complacent. And maybe this is the time to really look at bringing in that expert so that we can market ourselves for the future, for the millennials, for what people are looking for, and the reasons why they're moving outside the state of Connecticut. And you know, I know the towns in Fairfield County. I know the constraints we have. I know we're considered old New England. I know that we have streets named after kings here. And you know, cities are building new developments and doubling the size of population. But if we continue to do the same stuff over and over and over again, we're going to end up where we are there. So just...
Thank you, Mr. Tetra. Mr. Tetra. Mr. Timniak, why do I keep doing that? I looked at mine.
I'm Sheila Marmion.
I know. I would say thank you to them.
Okay. So I just wanted to say that I think this is a great discussion, and I do think that I see it in my own backyard with the synagogue in terms of there was a real tension in terms of people not wanting the traffic, the congestion, being concerned, and yet it was a real opportunity to add value to that site and to put that property on the Grand List. So I think that tension is real, but I do think we have an opportunity, and I think it's in the form of the strategic planning committee, which is going to put together a plan to say where do we want Fairfield to be in 10 years and how do we get there. I think that is the pathway towards potentially, hopefully, rallying the community towards who we want to be as a town. So I'm very hopeful that putting together that plan will facilitate that dialogue and that process.
I'd just like to say, also following up on that and what Ms. Desmond says, yeah, because, I mean, I think we learned from the GE debacle that while it's great having these two universities, and for all the reasons you mentioned, and they're great and whatever, but having Sacred Heart buy that property was horrible for the town, to be quite honest with you, because that's now completely off the tax rolls. And then on top of that, the governor cuts the pilot money on top of it all, to add insult to injury. Whereas maybe we should have, in hindsight, thought about doing something and buying it ourselves and then figuring out what to do with it, bringing another nursing home up there, bringing incubator businesses such as being discussed doing up there. Because we've now lost that property probably forever as being a tax-producing property again. I'm not saying we were going to ever get a Fortune 50 company in there again. We were lucky to have it for as long as we did to come replace them. But, you know, to take that tax hit and never have it come back, and to see the way the state treated us after that by gutting the pilot money is disgraceful. And it's just, I think we got to look a little more forward next time on stuff like this, and maybe we got to get involved and to control our own destiny on some of this property.
Mr.
Just a
Tetra.
thought.
Yes, thank you. I think that, you know, your point, definitely there are some short-term speed bumps and issues with the loss of tax revenue from that, but in the long run, it can be a real positive for our community and what Sacred Heart's doing there. And as we look at different partnerships with Sacred Heart and what they can do for our community. So I think that, and specifically with the business incubator programs that they're talking about there, and what I see, frankly, missing from the two universities, and what I'm looking forward to working with them on, is when you look around at other universities that are very involved, we've got a lot of Sacred Heart and Fairfield U alumni that have came to the university, graduated, and liked the town, so they lived around here. All right, very good. We still need to see the business growth generated by those. And I know I can look at some very specific universities, and one of the big differences is there are big commercial sectors of companies that are tied into the university and departments they have at the university. So it's not that they're just happy being in town with the universities, they're aggressively using their departments, and that's part of what we've been talking to Sacred Heart and Fairfield U about.
Good. Thank you. And I'm going to move this on. Mr. Barnhart, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. I knew that was going to be a lengthy discussion. It's on everybody's mind.
It's never about your budget.
All right. So we're going to go to page 157, which is, we're going to go to the tax collector now, at Mr. Mayor's request. So let's move to the tax collector quickly. And this budget is up by 5%. The vast majority of this, again, is the payroll item. Is this correct? Tax collector, page 159. My apologies for not calling that out. So we have no increase in personnel. We have the large increase, I'm gathering, in salary, and there it is, between the deputy tax collector and that. Correct.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so as far as salary goes, same situation. Myself and my assistant are in the PETA contract, and for my assistant, there was a 6-year increase. So that is the bulk of the increase.
Do we have questions for the tax collector? How is the online tax payment? Are we getting a lot of traction on that, or no?
Probably about 8 to 10% of the overall payments. It's tricky. So there's really no way around it when it comes to paying with a credit card. There's always a fee, and this is every town in the state that offers credit cards. So we don't encourage it, obviously, because it's extra money to the taxpayer. It's more or less just if they have to, if they're, we have people that are out of the country, they want to pay it on time, and, that's what they do, that's how they pay it. It's also a system that I've tried to put kind of like explanations on the town website to help them better understand how to pay online, but we're always willing to offer assistance over the phone. So it is, I think, it's a program that just over time, it's going to take time for residents to get comfortable with it and just better understand it. And I think the numbers will increase over time. They have. I just think it will exponentially increase over time.
What about people paying at People's Bank? What percent of the people pay there?
That is smaller. That's about like 3 or 4%. And
Pretty much probably people that bank there, right, primarily?
Yeah, they don't have to be, and we make
Yeah.
that clear.
Yeah,
But,
But you're not going to go there if you don't bank there. I mean, maybe you do, but I don't, right, exactly.
I'll offer it to people, they work full-time, and they say, I can't get here, you have hours that are during the day, and I say, well, there's People's Bank at Stop and Shop, and you can go there, and you can, they're open till 8 o'clock, so that is an option. It's kind of like a workaround for us having evening hours.
Appreciate that. Any other questions? We'll go with Mary, Chris, then we'll come over here.
I'd like to thank you. In December, when the tax law changes came in, I gave you a call, and you were very impressive. You gave me great tax advice for my clients, and you were right on the money. So
Thank
I want
you.
to thank you for that and let everyone know that he's so very knowledgeable.
We didn't actually give tax advice, though, did we?
What?
We didn't actually give
no,
tax
on-
advice, though.
On how Fairfield treats
Procedural advice, perhaps.
Procedural advice,
Right.
yes. On what we could collect and what people could pay in advance. And so that's where my question is did we bring in prior year tax funds that we had been trying to collect in previous years? Did that help our collections at all, or did that, do you know?
In terms of the new federal tax plan,
Yeah, so did people try to pay what they owed, back taxes and things, so
it,
they
it,
could get
it
the
didn't
deduction?
impact the back taxes, the current year taxes. So they could have paid the January and April installments as is, but it encouraged them, it pushed them to pay it earlier. So we collected from approximately December 20th to the end of the year, we collected 24 million more than we did in the entire month of December last year.
So we want you to keep that collection rate up as we move forward. That'll be your benchmark.
So interest and income's coming up, Bob?
Right.
I actually had a line that almost stretched across Town Hall on the Friday before New Year's. And I just started taking myself, because my staff was at the counter or on the phones, I started taking payments in the hallway because I told myself I can't be that tax collector that gets labeled as the one that let the line get across the entire building. And I actually got a very favorable response. I had a gentleman that actually called me a couple days later. He said he had just gotten out of the hospital, he had broken his leg, came down town hall to pay, and he was in no condition to stand for 30 minutes with his broken leg. So he was, he said I was a lifesaver, and he was very thankful that I did
Probably
that.
one of the first tax collectors in the history of the world that had people lined up to pay their taxes early.
Yeah.
Any others?
That was it, I just wanted.
Mr. DeWitt?
Is there a charter requirement or any other kind of requirement that we have to send out physical bills?
There is not.
So, a bunch of years ago, when we revised the purchasing policies, there was a requirement there. We had to advertise in a local newspaper, which we pulled out because we wanted to, have international. So, what's the opportunity for us to do online? Get our bills online?
Online billing.
Yeah.
Okay. We could explore that. My only concern is, yes, the law says we don't have to send a bill because the law also says that if the taxpayer does not receive the bill, they're still liable for the interest. But at the same time, obviously sending the bill is a courtesy that we offer, but it also is like it's the office's lifeline, because when 9 out of 10 times when the bill does not get to the taxpayer, it comes back to us from the post office. We have years and years worth of mail returns. We file them, we research them, we make every effort to get it back out to the taxpayer either in a timely fashion or, it provides us an explanation to the taxpayer when they come in wondering where their tax bill was when they're not able to register their car.
So, and Chris, I do have a little experience with this at some of the companies I've worked at. And even till this day, there's still something about getting a written document that says, you owe this, that spurs people to pay. And each company I've been at that has done these test cases of not sending out bills or statements, but just doing it electronically, their accounts receivable have increased. I don't know if anybody else has had, Kevin, you've had the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I was
Increased
just.
when they went online, you said?
No, the accounts receivable increased. People didn't pay.
Yeah. Right.
Because they didn't get the bill or whatever. So there's still, that getting something in the mail to say, pay your bill, it really works. And it blows you away. And every couple of years I try it again, and my accounts receivable go through the roof, right? And then I send out the bills and it comes back down.
Well, it's really easy to ignore an email.
Right.
It's really easy to do it. I didn't get it, I didn't see it, it's in my junk folder, but the letter does, catch your attention,
Yeah,
no doubt.
Gets into your bill payment, with the other bills.
exactly. So,
And I'd be afraid for elderly, and people just don't use computers. They're just
Right.
people that just don't. I mean,
And-
it's just-
and
old
we
email
don't-
accounts, just
Yes.
the hygiene
It's-
of your email list.
We
is
don't have the
just-
capability because we don't have emails for every resident.
maybe in
Right.
another 20 years,
Right.
you'll be born with an email address.
20 years,
and,
we'll still be sending out paper,
knows?
because today we said no one else,
Exactly.
not everyone in the place has emails. I mean, it's,
No,
you gotta
Chris.
start, you gotta start with something.
No. That's, please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, and I think what Kevin's saying, as people that have run accounts receivable organizations, you notice a dramatic difference, even in today's day and age, in cash flow when you don't send out hard copy documents.
No, I understand exactly. Listen, I'm the
Yeah.
guy who I literally walk in and pay my taxes at town hall. I just, I don't mail it in. I literally come here and mail. So I'm a horrible example of this. But every day I'm inundated with, you want to go green? You want to not get your bill in the mail? And I've virtually purged the physical mail, with the exception of almost the tax bills.
Yeah,
So
I think,
I understand the situation, but
well, Mike, there are two things. Normally, when you're paying bills, you don't pay more if you pay it online. Because of tax laws, we actually have to charge you the fee in addition to your taxes. We can't charge you less tax. So we can't
I'm not
include it in
talking
that.
about, I'm just talking about getting in, as Mr. Kiley said, an email or some electronic statement that says, hey, your taxes are due.
And I think that, one, we literally don't have the emails for all the residents in town as we do that. We
Oh,
do have them
okay.
tied to addresses. But the other piece, I think technology will change in time, that you'll do it all on your phone. So we won't have to know your
Do
email.
it on your phone today. But we're still going to be sending out paper because we don't want, then we'll be saying, oh, we don't have phone numbers for everybody.
I
So
think
it's a self-fulfilling
one-
prophecy.
Okay, if I could finish, one of the keys, I think, is that we're obviously a monopoly in terms of people who live here can't choose to pay their taxes to another town, they have to pay them to us. If Mr. Flynn changed his billing process and I didn't like that, I could go buy services from another company. Here, I think we have an obligation to our residents and our taxpayers to make sure we're doing things as user-friendly as we can, and if that's something they prefer, and we can do that. In time, things will change, and as you point out, but I think that we have an obligation to be as user-friendly as we can along these lines.
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question on that, is because that my tax bills are one of the few bills that I actually handwrite checks now. I pay almost every other bill electronically, and I can set it up and pay it quarterly or pay it monthly. But for my tax bills, I always feel I have to write that check out. Is that still the case, that people have to manually write it, or is it okay to send an electronic
Well,
check?
we have a lot of taxpayers that do the online bill pay through their bank.
Okay.
It's ACH, right? Just put your routing
They'll
number and
actually
your.
do
Yeah.
an electronic
Yeah,
check.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can do ACH.
Yeah.
So we have a third-party vendor called Invoice Cloud for online payments, but you can do an ACH through them. You don't have to pay with a credit card, and then that's a 95-cent flat fee. So it's, it's a lot more manageable than, say, the percentage, the
But
2
you could
point.
just do it through your bill pay, through your bank.
You can also,
Just
yes,
set it up
correct.
and just have
And then
the
they
right
just send
code
us a
on it.
check with the account numbers on it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And that is, a lot of people utilize that.
Yeah.
I thought for some reason you couldn't do that. No, that's okay to do.
Through your own bank, yes. That's.
We're going to go to Mrs. Esma.
Thank you. So what changes took place in your department as a result of losing the part-time employee? How did that impact you?
It was actually a
Collected
full-time.
$24 million worth of taxes.
It was actually
It was a full-time.
full-time.
Forgive me.
So myself and my assistant just took on more positions, more duties. She took on the refund process, which has been pretty chaotic with the federal tax plan. We've had a lot of banks pay taxes for the taxpayers when they should not have. And then myself, to my knowledge, I'm the only tax collector that actually is at the counter taking payments face-to-face with taxpayers, which I don't mind. I like that interaction. In the busiest of times, it's something that I do. I came from a small town. I was tax collector in a town of 20,000 people. I had no choice but to do it, and it's something I know how to do. So it's, it's something I've had to take over, but it's something at the same time, it is refreshing. It's a change of pace for me.
Good. So is it sustainable, and do you think it will negatively affect collections or other services in your office?
So far, it's been sustainable. I've been very lucky and very fortunate. I have a very good staff. Everyone has been there I have people that have been there for 20 years, 15 years, 5 years. Only one person is, I've been there for a year. One other person has been there for 2 years. So I have a very seasoned staff. So at the moment, it's, it is somewhat sustainable, but if I was in a position where I had a lot of turnover, then, it would definitely be a struggle.
Yeah. And my second question was, seniors in town are registering in your office for senior tax relief, or enrolling, rather?
That would be the assessors.
The assessor's
Assessors.
office, okay. And I just want to say that on the 29th of December, at some ridiculous hour in the afternoon, sliding into home plate, I paid my two, Jan and April, and it just went perfectly. No glitch, no problem, so,
Thank you.
thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Tetra, you had
Just,
something.
From a ratio standpoint, what percentage of tax collections come from individuals versus from mortgage companies, where it's included in the mortgage payment?
Escrow companies.
I'd say it's approximately 50-50.
Wow.
I'm surprised
What would you think it would be, more or less?
it'd be like 80-20.
In a typical year, it's that. But what happened, the reason why we got the 24 million extra was the majority that do escrow and would normally never come in to pay their house taxes, the bank said, we don't have the time to get these payments in. Go ahead and pay your taxes and just show us a receipt. So we had, the other, not the full 50% that escrow, but we had all of them coming in, all the residents coming in, paying their house taxes. And, we let them know, contact your bank as soon as possible, because this bill has already gone out to the bank. The bank is scheduled to pay this. Make sure that they're aware that you're paying.
All right. Anybody else?
No, if I may, a couple of quick things. One, with respect to the loss of the person, which is addressed, actually when David and I interviewed, when we were talking about the discussion, we actually had a discussion about the staffing over there, and there might be possibility for changes. My one displeasure about that was I would have preferred if it hadn't been done the day before he comes in the door, kind of thing, been able to work through the process. But it's worked out fine, and there's no problem with it. One of the things we do, because of the how busy it is in July, is the finance department loans a body for a few hours to cover lunch times.
Good.
Because it's very busy over there, and we have a person that we train in taxes, and so we do some cross training, cross work, cross support, that type of thing. The other thing I want to say is during that rush, we didn't just close the tax department doors at 4:30. Lines were long. Anybody that arrived in line before 4:30, the staff stayed to collect those taxes.
Good.
Yeah,
I appreciate your
we
staff
didn't
today.
turn anyone away. It was actually the Wednesday and Thursday. We had lines of people in the doorway. We stayed there, waited till they, we didn't turn them away. It was strange, but the Friday it was, not busy. But like Mr. Mayor said, we did not, turn anyone away. We let everyone through, and there were quite a few days during that week where we were there till 5:15.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Thank you, staff, too.
Yes, please. All right, see none? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go on to purchasing. That's page 151. Mr. Mayor, you're handling this tonight.
Yeah, if I may, since we have Ross Murray here as the only other person besides myself who's the assessor.
Oh, sure, we can do that, please. Thank you. Let's go to page 153, the assessor. Good thought. Welcome, and thank you for being here.
Good evening.
So you drew the short straw tonight? Okay. So, this budget's going up 1.94%. It's going up from 700,000 to 713,000. It looks like it's all, or the vast majority of it's related to payroll.
Yeah, I had one individual that was in the PETA contract and got was entitled to a 6-year retro pay.
Okay. Any other areas go up significantly? Printing and binding?
Yep, that increase is due in part to a move of, the printing and binding was included in the IT software. It came in on a budget letter from one of our vendors, and it had been put into that account, so I've split that out and put it where it more appropriately belongs in the printing and binding section. And that was $6,400 that got moved.
Anything else? There's a few other, there are low dollar values, but there are high percentage increases. Travel, renter's rebate, office supplies. Oh, is it? No.
It's off the line.
Oh, it's off a line, I'm sorry. That was travel.
Education and membership.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, education, Mr. Tetro and I had quite a discussion on my education budget. The staff in the office has not been trained much at all over the past many years. We talk about utilizing technology, but in order to utilize that technology, you need to train the staff. They need to go out, they need to go to meetings, they need to interact with counterparts in other towns to, pick up best practices and learn. And it's really been a lacking item in the office over the past several years. So, that's up along with the travel component that goes along with that.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Chris.
I have a couple questions on the revenue side.
Sure. Well, let's stay on expenses right now, and then we'll go to revenue. Anybody else? All right, let's go to revenue then. What's the page?
15.
Thank you.
Say it again.
What page is that?
Page 15.
Tax app, we forgot to talk about that.
We'll ask Mayor. Yeah, we forgot. Go ahead.
On specifically the elderly tax credit, which it looks like we're not receiving the money from the state of Connecticut this year. Is there... walk me through what you know of the latest of the elderly tax credit. Have we stopped the program from the town?
No, the state stopped the funding but did not remove the program from the statute, so it's still a mandatory program. It's an unfunded mandate now.
Okay, so where is that now? I didn't see that on in your line in the budget.
Yeah, we're talking about the tax.
Yeah.
Let's go with the 3
What it-
average.
Where are we
There
funding
is no
now?
revenue.
It's not, you're on revenue.
Right, so where are we, so if we're not getting the $335,000 reimbursement, where are we picking that up?
It comes out of collections.
Well, no,
Is it
if I may,
reduce-
basically, there's a state program says that people who qualify, their taxes are reduced. And because the taxes are reduced, the state, kind of like a pilot program, if you will, provides the municipalities the money in place of those taxes. Basically, the taxes are still reduced because the people still qualify for being seniors, disabled, vets, or whatever. Actually, I think the vets didn't get didn't get
vets
discontinued.
continued
Didn't
in
get-
the state
Vets was
program.
continued, but disability senior. So the taxes are still reduced, period.
So we didn't have to make an adjustment on the taxes. There's
No,
No, we-
no, it's
well-
just the taxes are reduced, so,
Yeah.
so it's a revenue loss to the town.
Yeah.
So that's, so our tax requirement, if you will, when we set our mill rate will be
Who did that? Who did that? The governor?
$335,000 higher.
Actually, no,
Governor
that
do
was,
that?
that was in the budget that was passed in October.
These people are cowards. Seriously.
And specifically, just to simplify it as
People.
best I can, we lower the assessment for the folks that qualify for this. So when we sent out their tax bills in June, we didn't ask them to pay this. The state traditionally would reimburse us the $400,000, so we'd be whole by the end of the year.
Yep.
In the budget that passed in October, they said, we're not going to reimburse you. So
I
we had
remember
already
this.
told folks they didn't need to pay.
Yeah.
They
These,
We
wasn't
ate it.
included in their tax bill. We'd already lowered our revenue.
Right,
So this is one of the municipal aid cuts, if you will.
right. We ate this.
Yep.
it's cowardly.
Yes.
Was that included in that 986 number we heard about two nights ago?
No, 96 numbers for this year.
That's what
This
Mr.
is for-
Tetro meant.
this
No, this is for next year.
This is for next year.
I thought you just said in this budget year.
Chris is right. It happened this year.
It
too.
did- that-
In the,
It happened, but
what
in the
year are we
state
talking
budget.
about?
Yes.
State
it happened
budget.
in this
17,
year.
18?
Yep.
No,
Fiscal 18.
no.
So to Chris's point, was
It's
it part
for
of the number
fiscal
for-
19.
This book is for fiscal 19. The budget that passed in October
Fiscal 18.
covered fiscal 18.
Yeah.
So it was part of the reduction in municipal aid for this year.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Right, okay,
It's
both,
not coming back.
So, right.
right.
What-
Yes, yes,
We-
right.
we
right,
heard-
right,
it
right.
was in that
I'm sorry, right,
986.
I got confused.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
yes. Right, sorry.
All right. Anybody else on this? Seeing none, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Can we ask just one question? What's going to happen with the Board of Assessment Appeals? When's that number going to come out? Do they have anything, are they doing any adjustments to Board of Assessment Appeals this year?
We just never got it.
Well, they had 212,
We have about 206 appeals this year.
Okay. When were those due by?
February 20th was the due date to make the appeal, so they're actually started hearings tonight.
So we won't have an answer by the time we vote on what happens with those.
Oh, I think we will. When will they come up with their
They
number?
will-
No.
They will finish in March.
Yeah.
They will finish in
Right,
March.
and
Good.
then from
Okay.
there, they can take an
I
appeal
was
to Superior
concerned.
Courts. We
Okay.
won't know, the Superior Court appeal doesn't happen until
Right.
end of June.
Maybe that's what I was thinking of.
But
was that there's-
the reductions that they do grant, we'll know.
Right.
So we'll know what the effect is by when, Bob?
we'll know the deductions granted.
Yes.
We'll know the number that's going to court, but we won't have any idea. Well, actually, the appeal process, when can they?
We'll know what the reduction the BAA granted by the end of March.
Right, but there's appeal process.
But the appeal process runs through June 30th. We won't
So,
know.
so we don't really know.
We'll have a
They
partial.
can appeal.
Time out, though. We'll have a partial answer, because we got bit by this one year, where there was a substantial amount of appeals that were approved. And we didn't know that when we voted. Right? So whatever we know by the time we vote, we want to know.
Yeah, I don't think we know anything, but let me make sure I understand
We
this
know
correctly.
something.
Well, let me ask the question, so Mr. Murray can
He already
can
answered.
respond. The BAA makes their decision sometimes the end of March.
Right.
The person may not accept that decision. They have until the end of June to appeal.
No, we understand that, but if they
Okay.
granted something, we want to at least account for the fact that they granted it, either whether
Yeah,
it's going to
right.
be appealed or not.
Yeah.
It might not be final, but
Right.
it's best available information, because guess
Yes.
what? If they lose, they're not going to go
Right.
back to the original.
No, they're going
Right.
to be at the number that they set.
Right.
So it's just, we know what, some amount that's gone. If they feel it's more.
Right,
But
exactly,
we'll know
exactly.
at that point.
Right, we know
What
something.
was
We
granted.
don't know
We
everything.
need to know what was granted.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
we'd like to do.
You'll know
Thank
the
you so
BAA.
much. Oh, I thought this guy was going to get out of here. Okay.
Just, it's really quick. Is 212 appeals, is that within what was expected? Is that an
No,
average amount?
that
Or
was much higher than expected.
Higher than
And
expected?
I don't have an answer as to what's driving that.
People are afraid of taxes.
Right.
And I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, but normally you see them decline, the reval year, it's the highest, and it kind of
Yeah,
ticks
but you
down.
just had what the federal government did, you had what they expect at the state level. I think
Yeah,
people
I
are
don't,
just,
yeah, that's a speculation, is that drove a lot of focus to it, and that drove people in, but,
that would be my speculation.
our next reval year?
2020.
2020 is next reval, yeah.
Chris, did you have something?
I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on tax relief, just one second. Where is that recorded in our budget as an expense for this year, since it's an unfunded
What,
mandate?
senior citizen or?
Senior tax relief.
It's not.
It's
a
not an
lack of revenue.
expense. It's just a reduction of the.
Oh, it's just reduction, okay.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Associated with that, just to close, can make it more complete, they also, they being the state, also reduced their funding of 50% of the renter's credit, which they then took out of, reduced our ECS fund? Yeah, ECS budget by that, which is about $50,000.
Okay, then.
Cowards.
Mr. Becker?
So you mentioned the sort of training component. Now that you're still to the department, so what are any other initiatives or like house cleaning items, things like that, kind of, that you're doing within the department that we should know about? Small, large, just.
There's things we do periodically. We just went through all the exempt organizations, or any organization wanted to be exempt at the municipal level, had to go through an application process, so we just finished going through that. That happens every 4 years. I plan to go and look at all the farms and get a better handle on conservation easements and how that's affecting us through, over the next year.
Okay.
Mr. Matola's an alpaca farmer, or what is that called?
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have farms.
Yeah, we do. All right.
Bee farms.
Anybody else? Seeing none, thank you
Thanks.
very much for being here.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go to purchasing, that's page 151. Sure. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Mayor on the purchasing department? We are largely flat year over year. So expenses were taken down, Mr. Mayor, while salaries went up, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, there's a couple of things I'm actually a little bit worried about with respect to the advertising. I think is really tight, and I think the printing and binding is really tight, but other than that, you can see the education membership is actually nobody except I'm actually encouraging the buyers, the two buyers, to join some kind of organization, start taking some educational seminars.
Okay.
But we'll see how that works out. But we didn't, since we don't know if they're actually gonna follow that guidance and how much, we left the number, pretty low.
Any other questions, comments, concerns on this budget? Seeing none, I'm going to move along to administrative services, which is on page 158.
Just 58.
Just 58, sorry. Is it just 58?
I think it is.
Okay. Yeah, 58. Thank you
Chris
very
knows
much.
These numbers better than I do.
All right, is there any, this budget's exactly the same as last year?
Except for 2% increase on the part-time employees.
Right, okay. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Part-timers are in this budget, all part-timers in the budget, a 2% increase.
That's just a raise in their rate? Is that what it is? Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns on this budget? Administrative services. All right. Seeing none, we'll move along. Let's go to finance.
Page 148.
Of course it is. Is this one of those that is set off by the change in?
And the senior internal auditor. Oh, no, and the budget director.
Right, so Social
Yeah,
Security.
the
went
budget
up.
director, the central auditor, and the controller are all PETA people.
Those were all 13 and 19.
13 to 19 people.
Why did printing and binding go up? Yeah.
Printing and binding went up because that's mostly payroll checks, accounts payable checks, the budget book. And it's pretty,
It went up 15%. That seems a little crazy.
well, actually, the budget went up $7,000. The budget is actually $500 less than the 17 actual.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember what happened in 15. I guess I should. It's
So that went up finances. What's
you don't have the
education and membership, just asking?
education membership is primarily GFOA, state and fed, and then there's also a payroll reporting service, data service that we subscribe to because we do the payroll.
So these are essentially required?
Well, GFOA is not required. The payroll, we definitely, and the number required, but we definitely need the payroll service to keep on top of that.
Okay. Anything else different in this budget?
No, it's pretty generic.
All right. Let's go to, does anybody else have any questions on this budget? Seeing none, let's go to.
Want to go to the revenue side?
Yeah, let's do that. Thank you.
Revenue side's on page 16.
I appreciate you reminding me.
Could get there eventually.
And what do we got? Any big changes here?
As I get to the page,
Total finance, it's down by almost 7%. Yeah.
so if you go down the list, you got the phone access lines. That's the communication companies that pay personal taxes to the state, and we get reimbursed. We're actually the notice just came in. This year's number is going to be 118,000, so that might be a little bit over. I don't know. We talked about the general education grant, the 803. That's been reduced by the state. Because of the renter's credit, which I mentioned earlier. The school building grants, that's not an aid, so to speak. That's actually grants for buildings that's been done. That's a scheduled payout that's just ended. That wasn't a budget item from the state's perspective. It was just a receivable item from our perspective that got paid out.
Yep.
The LoCIP, you can see the budget for this year is 683, 19, 437. As you know, that's the local capital improvement program. That seems to be solid. The next item is the town aid roads, 714. You may have read in the paper that the bonding for that has been put on hold while the governor is trying to figure out what he's doing with the, so that may or may not be at risk. Then we got the state allocated municipal share program, 96K. Mercer sales tax is down
You
significantly.
did raise interest income. Is this due to the advance payments, or what's that? That would be this year.
Interest income going down to, what line is that? No, way down there? Okay, cool. I'm happy to jump down there.
Well, it's a big change.
Yeah, that's basically three items there. One, interest rates are going up. Two, I'm not playing HR director anymore, or purchasing director anymore, so I have a little more time. I've been more aggressive with the banks on our funds to get the return. And thirdly, because I have more time available, and thirdly, I found a vendor that allows me to invest in CDs across the country. The money's with U.S. banks, so the money's solid. Custodians, U.S. bank's the custodian. But I don't have to research the banks because we make sure it's fully insured. And these guys search for the best the best rates across the country. And so we just, in fact, I just put another $5 million in that last week.
Okay.
You have time, we can put you in economic development.
I have some ideas there too. But
Any other questions? Mr. Timniak?
So, I know there's a lot of questions with the state right now, but I see pilot program nonprofit. Is that what the governor put to zero? And I see it listed for $1 million. Is that same line?
Yeah, there's three budgets, right? There's the adopted budget, and then there's what I call the allotted budget when they went through after initially, and they said, well, the adopted budget isn't really balanced because of revenue, and so we used the second one, the allotted budget. Then there's what you're referring to is the governor's mitigation budget, which, yes, reduces us another $1 million or $2 million.
Okay.
So we're using the governor's holdback budget.
Yes.
That's the holdback budget. So the legislature passed the budget.
Right.
And then he held back.
Right.
And then he just produced a new budget.
Correct.
And we're not using that one.
We're using the one in the middle,
The
holdback budget.
the November 15th budget.
Yes, exactly. It's about
Why wouldn't we use,
$2.3 million difference.
and why aren't we using the most current budget that the governor came out with? It's best available data?
It's the best available data. I mean, anybody you talk to says the governor's mitigation budget. I mean, you might have more information on that, Chris. I mean, everybody I talk to says it doesn't have legs, but who the hell knows excuse my language.
Does the legislature
Who
have
really
to
knows
approve-
what's going to happen?
Does the legislature have to approve that, or can the governor just unilaterally put that into effect?
I think the legislature has to act on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can do the
Assembly
holdback
has to
one.
approve it.
Right.
It's
He
kind
can
of
do
like,
the holdback one
it's like the
himself.
October one, they cut him out entirely. So he had no input to that.
So, yeah, it's,
Well, wait a minute. There was the original budget, then there was the holdback budget. The holdback budget, he could do himself because that was due to the.
Well, they
right,
as
gave him
part of
authority.
the October budget, they asked him to find $800 million.
right,
Right.
So they, in essence, gave him authority to go do that.
Right.
right.
In fact, they required him to go do it, would be a better way to say
Right.
that. And
Right. But
Right.
But
Go
the
ahead.
legislator has to prove what he wants to do now.
Which is the one that's
Correct.
not in here because
Correct.
no one
Right,
believes that's
no
going
one
to be
believes it's going to
approved.
happen, kind of what happened last year.
Yeah, I think I actually have those numbers.
The
if you-
revenues are down, they gotta find them
interested.
someplace.
That's, yeah.
You know, they're gonna cut someplace.
Well, there's,
Yeah, go ahead.
like
Mr.
we talked on
That's the
Tuesday,
bottom
these
line.
numbers
We
just
don't know
keep
what-
changing when it's got to do
Yeah.
with the government.
I was just going to say, so is it fair to say that this budget before us today is, compared to the most current governor's, whatever you want to call it, is $2.3 million too high in revenue, correct?
Compared to the governor's mitigation budget, it is, without counting pennies, $2,231,608.
I'm not counting pennies. Okay.
All right.
Do you have any documentation, like you could show us what the different budgets are next to each other?
Yeah, we do, actually. Do I have that? Oh,
Could you email that to us?
Yeah,
Just so
please.
that we
we
have,
won't mail you the CCM thing because it's got a couple errors in it, but we'll email you something.
yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. We just want to know what the delta is and what the
Yeah,
concern might be.
yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, there was a really concise document that was circulated about a week and a half ago via email from our state delegation.
Yeah.
And it showed all the columns for all these
Yeah.
budgets and where we were kind of where we are now and where we might be at the end. I'll see if I can dig it up. I'm not sure if everyone
Well,
got it or not.
We'll send something out regardless.
Does
But
that have the last stuff that the governor's having to deal with the lack of revenue again? That he, that
I think that last column might have been on there, yeah.
Basically, the government mitigation budget has, and I looked at state aid in two sections, right? The town state aid with the ECS grants, the LoCIP, the town road aid, all that kind of stuff. And then below that line, you have like the phone line access, the Connecticut Library, the library grant. Not counting that, okay, so just looking at that top, what I call the top line, the first tier, if you will. There's actually 3 tiers, because then there's the credits, which is the 3rd tier. The top tier, the projection is $3,481,000. The mitigation budget is $1,249,000. The governor's mitigation budget only gives us money in 3 categories: municipal revenue sharing bonus pool, $97,000; LoCIP, $437,000; and town road aid, $714,000. The ECS grant is zeroed out.
Delta,
The delta is at 2.231.
between what you've put in here and what he might.
What his mitigation document is, which has legs or
We've got-
not. I
Our
don't know.
exposure's $2 million if they were to just take what his recommendation is for this coming year.
Correct. Right.
All right. Any other questions on this?
all right. And that last budget cuts all ECS money?
Took out all the ECS money, took out all the Pequot Mohegan money, took out all the pilot, took out all the municipal revenue sharing. No, it didn't take that out. Took out the sales tax
Does it give us any education dollars at all?
on the Board of Ed side.
Does he care? He's going
On
to
the Board of Ed
Maryland.
side? It does?
Nothing in the town side, right?
Nothing remaining on the town side, including school transportation, which was zeroed out, I think, last year.
Okay.
But you're saying he took out pilot, but then there's a pilot line?
Well, that's what his
I'm missing.
recommendation was. They're not going with his recommendation, right?
Yeah.
Last year, didn't the books get published with best available, essentially, as the governor's
Well,
Like
yeah,
last year,
but
we
This
took
is-
it,
Yeah,
Correct.
this is,
built it.
Well, that's the
still-
point.
We
You
sort
don't-
of saying that this year we don't want to do that because we don't think that he's
no,
going to
this
be
is
as
still
relevant,
best
or-
available. I mean, because when we say best available, we say reasonable, best available with legs, likely. You know, everyone's up in arms. I don't know, Chris, I don't know if why don't you share a little bit?
I'll just say how far we've come to the audience, that we no longer consider the governor's budget recommendation whatsoever.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty
I was
universal.
just asking what
Yeah.
we're considering here as we
Thank
compile
you,
this.
But we do know there's revenue shortfalls that's got to
No,
be
there's
found.
potential revenue shortfall.
Potential revenue shortfalls. Okay. So does this mean we're going to have to build in a buffer this year?
Well, actually, no.
Like a
What's not
contingency?
in this year's budget is a tax sale,
What's not what?
in this year's budget. In the budget for 19, there's no tax sale.
There's no tax sale in this budget at all currently to get-
Correct statement.
Okay. So there'd be a.
Saw
pot-
that when we looked at, I looked at prior year tax levy. It went from 4
Right.
million to 2 million. Round
Right,
numbers.
went from 6 million to 3 something, yeah,
I think it went 4 to 2.
That's-
but-
So how much would we have the potential there for? 3 million?
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Anybody else on this? All right, seeing none, let's go to fund balance, page 102. We kind of talked about this earlier, and we're going to come back to this after we do whatever we do with the budget. But this is just a calculation, correct? Straight calculation, and we did it based on the increase in the budget.
Yes, that's exactly correct. You know, just a couple of relevant pieces of information. Like if to go up a full percent, in other words, 100 basis points, takes an additional $3 million into the budget. To go up $300,000, to go up 10 basis points, takes an additional $300,000 in the budget. What this number would do is increase the the percent by 1.6 basis points.
Well, that's because the budget's going up by what, the spending's going up by a little over 5 million. Is that a correct statement? I can't remember from earlier this evening.
I think 6 something.
6 million, yeah, that's right, because it was 5 million on the Board of Ed side, and then it was a million or so on the town side.
Right.
So that funds that increase?
Yeah,
And
so-
nothing more?
Yeah, well, I'm projecting this year's budget, because you're going to see some, when you go to the quarterly, we'll refine this more. The next quarterly will be more refined. But basically, what I'm looking at is 17, the year-end 17 that's history, was 9.527.
Yes.
I'm looking at 18, I'm going to work that to be 9.536. So it goes up like 1 basis point.
0.2.
And then 19, this 700,000 would take that up to 9.552, which would be another 1.6 basis points.
So, right, well, we just heard this 2 nights ago, 9.53, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this 700,000 isn't even,
9.53,
this
yeah.
700,000 isn't even cracking 10% yet.
No, to get
you
to
said-
10%, you
You'd
need,
say 1.5 million, right?
to get from 9.5 to 10 would take 1.5 million.
Yeah.
Correct statement.
Which is what you just said, right?
Yeah.
This is sort of that, just to do no harm, and that's it.
A little
This
bit
is-
more.
that's what it
I
was
mean, I
supposed
try
to
to go up,
cover-
yeah.
to cover the increase, right?
Cover the increase.
It's maintain.
I want to maintain, and I
Yeah.
try to make it a basis point or 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go a little.
That's the
yeah.
marching orders.
Yeah. That's what this is supposed to do.
That's what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
You did what you were supposed to do.
Well, at this point in the budget anyway, right?
Yeah.
Well, it gets adjusted based on what we do with the budget, but again, the whole point of this was do no harm. Don't plan to end next year any worse than we
Right.
were this year as it relates to the fund balance. Now, in fairness, if we didn't take and pull some of that money forward, like you're intending this year, right, we have been able to add to the fund balance incrementally by the savings that we've achieved over the course of a year, whether that be increased revenue or decreased.
Yeah, if we hadn't held over, we'd be over 10.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Linda, is there any reason why we don't have the actuals for the last 3 years? I had to go back in my books.
The actuals are zero because it drops to the bottom line.
Yeah, it's not an expense.
It's not
It's-
an
it goes straight
Right.
through, goes straight to
Oh.
the fund balance.
Well, I mean, just for historical purposes, I mean,
You want to know what the number
Just
is?
I mean,
note it, I think.
in
footnote it.
17, it was 550,000, you know.
Yeah.
I know it's not an expense, so it wouldn't, you know.
I can just-
I went back and checked, I've got the numbers, I'm just curious why you didn't,
Yeah, that's why.
you
All
just,
right.
because it
They're
gets.
they're not,
Any-
because
any
in
other
the end
questions
result, they're
on
not,
this item?
they're not there.
It'd be the actual budget.
All right, seeing none, let's go to the Board of Finance budget, page 168. Congratulations, we're down 1.3%.
Good job, guys.
We're not funding any studies this year.
Are there any questions, comments, or concerns with this budget? We're keeping audit fees flat. It was weird to see Social Security contributions go up when part-time payroll was flat. It was a little bizarre to me.
So, what?
Social Security, I mean, it didn't go up by a lot,
It's $20.
$20. That was just a little weird.
No, but part-time payroll is, you know, right? It's me and Jen.
Yeah, no, we just saw the Social Security increase, that's all. It's fine. Yeah, Chris?
Listen, I know the budget went down, but I'm just, what are we, we're not funding any studies or anything this year, so why have we got 88,000 in professionals?
That's the audit.
Oh, the audit, got it, okay.
Anything else?
I mean, the clerk's fee is less than what it used to be, right?
At one point, yes.
Okay. I mean, do we ever look at increasing that a little bit, just to, like everybody else gets increases, or what?
We can discuss that at a certain point.
I mean, I think it should go up every couple of years. I mean, no, I'm talking about the clerk, our clerk for the Board of Finance. It's at 8,800. At one point, it was higher. But the question I'm raising is, should that be looked at increased since everybody else gets increases over time, and we haven't done that in a well, we probably decreased it, but that was because of a change in the methodology.
We did increase it between 16 and 17. We haven't increased it since 17.
And this will be 19, so
Right.
maybe we should
We can
talk
consider
about
that.
it.
Yep,
Okay, so why don't we think about doing that? We can deal with it at budget time.
correct.
Okay. Because they're down, the department's down 1.3, so whatever.
Anybody else have anything on this budget? All right,
Debt service, page 373.
debt service 373.
Thank you, 273.
273, yeah, you're right. Comes with a tab. Mr. Mayor, this ties to all of our prior schedules.
Yes. I mean,
You're not, there's nothing funky in this number as relates to you're not refinancing, you're not accounting for anything different in this number?
I'm going to hand out a separate, another schedule, which has the exact same numbers on the schedule, but presents them a little bit differently, and it makes it a little bit more understandable.
Fine.
I was looking at this today.
And
Thank you. Thank you. Depends how complicated your schedule is, Bob.
My schedules are simple, because I'm a simple guy.
This is where they use the reserves to lower it. That's why I
Glad
thought.
the reserves aren't 1.6 billion anymore.
Yeah, I know.
I wish they were.
I also
We'll
have another
let that
question
rest.
about
Then I would say we wouldn't have to be here the rest of the month.
Okay,
All right.
go ahead, Bob. Walk
Okay,
us down
so
this.
basically,
Too many numbers.
so starting at the top, the total principal that's due is the 16 million. The use of bond premium, as I think you all know, I basically strictly adhere to a one-third amortization of all bond premiums. That way I stay out of trouble with the IRS, the arbitrage rules, and all that kind of stuff, and I don't want to ever have to go there. The interest is the interest. Then you got the bond participation notes, and you got interest on those, and again, you got the premium. That we use every year. Don't amortize that, because that's related to that year, and it gets paid off at the end of the year, so that's used 100% every year. And then you have the Clean Water Fund, principal and interest. And then we have estimated costs to market the bands in this coming fiscal year. So the total debt expense is $24,595,422. And then this is the account that we run through the carryovers. So we're using one, which is,
We did it this way because we don't want to misrepresent any of the other expenses
Correct.
in any of the other departments.
Yeah,
So
simplest
this way
here.
we segregate it and put it against the debt so that we track it and know exactly where we are. And we get a true run rate in all the other departments of what the expenses are.
well said, yes.
Okay. Anybody have any concerns, questions, comments on this? Do we have any opportunity to refinance and lower interest? Any? I wouldn't think so. I just want to make sure.
No, not at this time.
Right. Anything else? Anybody else have something on this?
Do you know how much we used on the bond, what was the bond premium amount we applied last year? Do you know? Do you have any idea?
1,400,000 something.
So the use,
We had a big bond premium that ran out.
that ran out. Okay,
it-
so it
it's
was
always
the third,
done
that
over
was the
3
third, that was the
Runs out
third,
in 3
that third
years.
year ran out last year.
Right.
Okay, so, because I thought it was lower, like $1 million number before.
And
so-
I try to stay pretty true to this.
No, I was just wondering, because I remember it being.
No, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions on debt service for right now? Seeing none. It's 11:20. And I actually think this went quite well.
I would agree.
And it was a great discussion for that department. It was a very important
I
discussion.
mean, got finance out of the way, got purchasing out of the way, got lots of departments.
No, we did.
Maybe we
thought
should.
you said just one department.
I don't know, maybe we could talk about it, but maybe we should get Mr. Barnhart in like 1 month where it's just, he could just deal with his budget when he comes in here, and we could just get him for a night of
Or we just have a discussion
presentation
on.
on economic.
account already, believe me.
Yeah.
So we don't have
Because-
to sit here and have a.
No, I know, and it's,
Well, 'cause the discussion-
it's a little unfair to him, because he's coming for,
February.
he's
Well,
coming
the
for-
discussion,
exactly.
the discussion wasn't about his budget. The discussion was about what his plans are.
Exactly, or how he's going to use his money, but yeah, I understand.
So, does anybody have any questions, comments?
Can hardly wait until the next one.
Do we have a list of who's responsible for bringing the donuts for the next meeting?
You are responsible for bringing the donuts on Tuesday.
I can take that on.
Actually, I don't think you can, because you have a meeting beforehand. Okay, if you'd like. On Tuesday night is Board of Ed night, everybody.
7 or 7:30?
7:30.
7:30.
The rest of the meetings, we knew this was going to be a late meeting, so we bumped it ahead to 7. All the rest of the meetings start at 7:30.
They do, thanks.
Okay. Everybody all set? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
thank you.
Mr. Matola, seconded by Mrs. Marmion. All in favor? Opposed, abstentions? We are adjourned, everybody. Thank you and good night.